Have you ever been in one of those conversations, the ones about bias or inequity, and you suddenly feel completely lost? It's like the language just shifts and you're not sure where you stand or even what to say. It can feel pretty impossible to get anywhere when we don't have a shared point of reference. So that's the big question, isn't it? How do we find a common language for something that is so deeply personal, but also incredibly complex and systemic? How can we figure out where we are on this journey? And maybe just as important, understand where other people are coming from. Well, that's exactly where a tool like the 6 Stages framework comes in. I want you to think of it as a map. It's a developmental model that gives us a shared vocabulary to help guide us on this journey. Not just our own personal journey, but our collective one too, as we try to better understand difference and inequity. And, just like any good map, this one shows a few different routes. The entire framework is really built around two main paths, two fundamentally different journeys you can take. One is about growth, and the other is about resistance. Okay, so this chart right here, this lays out the whole thing. Over on the right, in green, you've got the positive axis. That's the path of growth and inclusion. And on the left, in red, you've got the negative axis, the path of resistance and, well, harm. Now, what's so critical to see is that both of these paths start from a very similar place, basically a lack of awareness, before they shoot off in completely opposite directions. And look at how close these starting points are. Stage -1 is unaware and inactive. Okay, but stage +1 also starts with just a minimal understanding. The difference, and this is everything, is that tiny little spark of curiosity or openness. The entire journey, whether it goes positive or negative, really hinges on this one small but incredibly powerful shift in your mindset. So first, let's just take a quick walk down the negative axis. And look, this isn't about judging people. It's about understanding what a path of increasing resistance actually looks like. It shows what happens when we really fail to engage with these kinds of issues. As you move down this path from just being inactive, that resistance can really start to harden as you approach stage -3. And here, that passive avoidance we saw earlier, it becomes active resistance. People in this stage might openly attack efforts for inclusion and just flat out reject concepts like privilege or unconscious bias. The whole mindset shifts from, I don't really want to talk about it, to, this is wrong, and I'm going to fight it. At the furthest, most extreme point, this path ends up at stage -6. This is really the end of the line for the resistance journey. It's where a person's opposition becomes their mission. They don't just hold these views privately. They use their power, their influence, whatever they have, to actively promote discriminatory ideas and reinforce the systems that hold people down. Okay, but now let's flip it around and talk about the much more aspirational journey, the positive axis. This is the path we're all hoping to be on, the path of growth, of inclusion, in what the framework calls equity leadership. The journey on the positive side really starts to pick up speed right around stage +2. This stage is called discomfort and awakening, and honestly, it is such a critical turning point. It's when you start to really notice injustice, and it feels, well, uncomfortable. It's so common to feel defensive or overwhelmed or just totally unsure of what to do. But the absolute key here is that you're paying attention. That discomfort, that's actually the feeling of growth beginning. So as that engagement gets deeper and you move past the initial discomfort, you can progress to stage +4. This is a place of much more confident action. At this stage, you're not just learning anymore. You're truly committed. You're open to feedback, even when it's hard, and you're actively looking at your own role in the systems around you. The learning has turned into a consistent, reflective practice. And then at the very peak of this positive journey, we get to stage +6. At this point, the focus really shifts beyond just your own personal growth. A transformational leader is someone who drives change on a huge, systemic level. They don't just practice inclusion themselves, they empower everyone around them and work to fundamentally transform the culture of their organization or community. I really like this visual because it gives you another way to picture that positive journey. Think of it like expanding circles of awareness and impact. You start there in the core, maybe unaware. And as you grow, your influence just expands outward through that awakening and learning until you're actively transforming the entire environment for everyone. Okay, so we have the map, we see the two different paths. But how do we actually travel on the positive path? How do we move forward? Well, the framework breaks down that journey into 6 key development areas. These are basically the core practices from making progress. It all starts with awareness. That's just recognizing that inequality is real and that change is needed. That initial spark then leads to exploration, where you start intentionally seeking out different perspectives and challenging your own assumptions. All that work builds a deeper understanding of the big systemic issues. From there, the goal is integration, which means turning all that knowledge into consistent, everyday actions. And that prepares us for real, meaningful collaboration with others, which ultimately allows us to be part of lasting transformation. So at the end of the day, why does any of this matter? Why go on this journey? What are the real, tangible benefits of using a map like this for ourselves and for the groups we're a part of? Well, on a personal level, the benefits are just profound. This kind of journey builds your self-awareness, your empathy, your emotional intelligence. It literally gives you the tools you need to communicate more effectively and the confidence to navigate all kinds of diverse spaces with real skill and sensitivity. And then when you zoom out, the impact gets even bigger. For organizations, for communities, this journey leads to more inclusive cultures. And what does that do? It sparks innovation, it strengthens leadership, and it fosters genuine partnerships that can actually solve problems. It just makes our collective spaces better for everyone involved. So, you see, the 6 Stages framework is way more than just a model. It's really a tool for self-reflection and a call to action. It gives us a map, a path to creating meaningful change. So, now that you have the map, the only real question left is, what's your next step?